Welcome to the Lemkin Law Podcast, real talk on divorce and family law matters.
Welcome to the Lemkin Law Podcast, real talk on divorce and family law matters, where tough conversations meet real advocacy. Hollie Lemkin is a family law attorney and fierce defender of protective parents. If you're navigating a high-conflict divorce, a custody battle, or feel like the system's not listening, you're not alone. This show is here to give you clarity, truth, and a little fire to keep you going. So let's talk about what really happens behind courtroom doors and how to fight back. I'm your host, Jon Clemence, and today's episode is Financial Abuse Just Isn't About Money. First of all, Hollie, hey, welcome back to the show. I love seeing you.
Oh, thank you. I enjoy your comments.
Well, let's dig into it then, because this whole term financial abuse maybe isn't one that a lot of people are familiar with. So just tell us, if you wouldn't mind, what is financial abuse, and then how does it show up in your area of expertise, high conflict divorce or custody cases?
It's a very broad category. It can mean a lot of things. It could mean that one parent isn't intentionally supporting the child as it relates to children. It could mean that the children experience the abuse through the fact that the parent that they reside with primarily isn't being supported financially. So that trickles down to the children and they feel the same disadvantage. So there's a lot of ways it can show up in a divorce case. It isn't necessarily just a direct contact between a parent and a child.
Oh, interesting. Could it potentially be something that may inadvertently get overlooked because it's maybe flying under the radar?
It could, but usually those kinds of issues tend to come to the surface quickly, because when we start talking about money, everybody's ears perk up and they're listening and they're paying attention and they want to control the situation or they want to control the topic. And so it's usually a very heated topic.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, money will tend to do that. So can you kind of talk us through why a court may sometimes overlook an instance of financial abuse, even if it's part of this whole power and control pattern? Sometimes
judges they don't see the nuances of the control problem that's going on in a relationship or a divorce. They don't pick up on that. So they're in a mindset of, I have to make this fair and equal. Well, if there's financial abuse, you don't need to make it fair and equal. You need to make it appropriate, and you need to correct the abuse that's going on so that the custodial parent or the primary custodial parent is being paid appropriately or provided with funds appropriately to provide for the children. It always comes back to the children. What is being done for the best interest of the children? And if the child isn't being properly financially supported, that's a detriment to the child as well as to the other parent, but it's a detriment to the child. And so a lot of times courts, not intentionally, but just innocently overlook that if they're trying to be fair to both parties. They don't see the abuse, and so they don't correct for it.
I see. And then would you be able to, if you start picking this up, would you be able to, alter the way that you're presenting the case to be able to bring that to light in a way that would get the judge to reconsider?
Absolutely. And there's ways that you can do that by preparing schedules for the court to review, showing the tax returns that would demonstrate that, in fact, the other party has a substantial amount of money to be able to provide to the custodial parent and to the child, and you help educate the judge. That's primarily what an attorney does in a support proceeding, is you're educating the judge. What assets are at issue? What assets do both parents control and possess? And how can those be provided to the minor child or the benefit of the minor child? And that's your job in a courtroom when it comes to support payments, is to educate your judge.
That's interesting. I've never considered this idea that your job is to educate the judge, but it makes sense when you say it. It's just not something I really, thought of as a lawyer's job, but it sure is.
We spend more time educating our clients and judges than we do anything else when you boil it all down.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's very evident because you've been educating me as we've been having these podcasts, which is amazing. I do want to dig a little deeper. We've barely mentioned a few ways that maybe financial abuse might occur. So talk to me a little bit more detail. Like, what are some examples you've seen of how a spouse might use money to manipulate or punish the other parent?
Well, for example, just one basic one that comes instantly to mind is they say, I'm only going to give you X dollars when that is an obvious below the line need. You go get a job. So they're forcing the other party to give up some of their time with the child and to go get a job to help support the family when the non-custodial parent has plenty of money that they wouldn't have to have taken a job or a job that required that many hours so they could spend more time with the child. So that's one of the more obvious ways that it occurs and you see it. So I hope that answers what you're
Yeah.
asking.
Yeah, and then so like in a case like that, and let's say that it's your client and they've been told you need to go get a job, like what recourse do they have or you have in that kind of an instance?
Putting on the argument to the court that that's not going to be in the best interest of the child, that in fact this party has more than sufficient funds to provide to my client to support herself and the child so that she doesn't have to get a job that takes her away from the child. And that's a very routine argument in court. Um, and it's very common, unfortunately. I see that more often than not.
Yeah, that's too bad, but I would imagine you've got it a pretty good method of approaching it at this point then.
Yeah, mostly what I do to countermand that kind of an argument from the other side is creating documents that the court can see a side by side standard of who's earning how much money and what that would allow. If you do a 2-column spreadsheet for the court, they can see what mother makes, father makes, what mother has access to, what father has access to, and what leaves, who has money left at the end of the day to take care of the child.
So I want to
So
dig
you
into
look at
that. Yeah, yeah, I want to dig into that particularly that like that example because what happens if you run the numbers and you realize, oh, one party or the other party actually controls all the finances, or maybe they're hiding money or something like that. Like, what rights does the other party have when that kind of a situation unfolds?
the standard, like, and only speak to the standard for the jurisdiction that I practice in, which is best interest of child. So support, child support, or even spousal support for one of the spouses so that they don't have to get a job is ultimately falls to best interest of child. If there's a parent around to take care of the child, that's in the best interest of the child. So they're not having to take a job to support the child. Or if you look at the non-custodial parent and he's the high or she's the higher earner, and they're not providing sufficient funds to the other party, that ultimately will fall to the child. That's the better way to show it, that they've got excess funds or they're an extremely wealthy individual and could make any order that the court could honor any order that the court would make. Those are the ways in which you can start educating the court about what order would be best for this child and this family, given the earning capacity, education, skills, and ability to get a job, and need to be away from the child or not. Those are the ways in which you have to need it's again, it falls to educating your judicial officer so that when they go to make an order for support of any kind, they're educated about what the finances are in this family, despite what the parties may be saying.
I see. And when they go to make that order, or when you help educate the judge to make that order, I mean, like, what kind of expenses are we even talking about that might fall under the umbrella of child support?
Well, the law in my jurisdiction is that the child's entitled to live at the standard of living of the highest earning parent. So if you have, for example, a parent that makes $1 million a year married to a parent who stays home with the child and takes care of the child, they're not earning anything. So the child's still entitled to live at the highest standard of the highest earning parent. That's one of the ways you need to educate your judge and tell him, no, my client doesn't, or the child in this case doesn't have to live at a lower standard. He's entitled under the law to live at the highest standard of the highest earning parent. And that's one of the arguments that you can make to the judge is we call him the outspouse because he's not a custodial parent, or her, is this is what they're making, and this is the standard the child is entitled to live at.
Oh, that's
And that
interesting.
means
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah.
the order's going to be calculated based on that.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. I did not know that that was the law in your state. So that makes a lot of sense, though. Makes it maybe a bit easier, I suppose, trying to find a number.
I'm not sure about that. There's still plenty of
Easier.
fighting.
Well, I guess that's true. There are people involved.
Yeah.
Let's go back to financial abuse for a moment, though. If you
Okay.
suspect that, let's say, the other party, so not your client, the other party, let's say, is financially abusing your client, how do you legally prove that or help your clients, bring you a case that you can bring to the judge?
Okay, so the golden rule is ask for the documents to support everything you believe might be happening. That is the golden rule in my office. So your discovery process in your office needs to be very thorough and very tough. So you ask for tax returns, you ask for bank statements, you ask for W-2s, you want to see all of that. The more of that kind of information you can obtain from the out spouse, the better chance you have of putting together a picture of what the out spouse is making and earning and what their availability is of funds to help prove your case that they have the ability to make a higher child support order. And then it doesn't force the in spouse who takes care of the child to get a job just so that they're not on welfare. But it all
Right.
comes through a process that is known in the law as discovery.
I see. Yes, I've heard that word before. Yeah, about discovery. So, from a legal perspective, would the out spouse's legal representation would they be required to, facilitate that as well?
They are, but they're going to fight it as much as their client tells them to fight it because that's their job as a lawyer. But that's where the battles come.
I see. I see. Well, let's talk about that for a minute. In when we're talking about a parent who's maybe trying to get out from under economic control from the other parent or the spouse, that's probably a battle. So, what legal tools exist to help in that battle?
If you propound, which means ask for in layman's terms, if you ask for documents from the other spouse, such as tax returns, bank statements, that kind of information, and the other spouse doesn't want to give them to you or doesn't, you can file motions with the court. The court will routinely demand that the party that's failing to provide the documents is ordered to produce them. So there's that option. The other option that might be helpful in the situation that you're in would be taking the deposition of the out spouse, which I don't know if you've ever been to a deposition, but everybody sits down in a conference room and you get to ask questions of the out spouse. Where do you work? What do you do? How much do you make? How much is in your bank account? And all of that information can be used to help the judge make an order that benefits your client and the child.
Okay, so it definitely sounds like there are things that you, the client, and you, as representing the client, can do to make sure that these financial abuse situations are not happening or mitigated or accounted for, in the process.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you sit back and do nothing, you're going to get nothing. So you have to be aggressive when making your demand for documents, when setting a deposition and asking questions, so that you can bring that before the court and show the court, well, I deposed this man and this is what he said, or I deposed him or her and got these documents and they didn't give them to me, but I got an order that they're ordered to produce and they finally produced. And here's what it shows, Your Honor. And this is the basis under which is the amount of support I'm asking for and why.
Yeah, and so I can imagine. So we've been talking the whole podcast, and we keep using words like battle and legalese and these kind of things. I would imagine that you've had instances where maybe a client comes to you and they feel stuck or they feel powerless because maybe they've been made financially dependent or they just don't know what to do and they're in your office. What's your advice to someone who feels stuck in this process?
The first question I ask a person who's in that situation is I ask them, what is your goal? What is it you want? What is the end result you want to see in this case? That tells me volumes. It tells me where they are at the moment and where they want to go. but it tells me how far away from that goal they are or how little they think they can really achieve. So if I get a client who doesn't seem to have I guess the best word is doesn't have the foresight of what they're capable of having, you have to start educating them. It comes down to education. A good portion of my time with clients is educating them, teaching them, okay, you're entitled to this, or you're entitled to that, or he's not paying you what the court would mandate that he pay you. Let's go get the court to give you a better order. Let's modify your current order so that you have an order that will allow you to appropriately provide for your child that's at the best interest of your child and at the standard that he or she's entitled to.
Yeah, it sounds like you are a very strong ally and partner with your clients, which I think is just amazing. So
It's the
with
only
that,
way I know how to do it.
Yeah. Yes, and I just from talking with you, I can tell that you're just really good at it. And it's just been a pleasure, as always, to have you on the show today, Hollie. Thank you so much for coming by.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's a pleasure.
Yeah. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to the Lemkin Law Podcast, real talk on divorce and family law matters with Hollie Lemkin. To connect with Hollie, visit lemkinlaw.com and be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review. And with that, have a great day.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.